You joined OnlyFans the night you turned 18?
I think so, yeah.
And people subscribed right away?
Yeah.
Should they be in jail?
Yeah.
I could understand how it's appealing for a girl that has just turned 18, okay? Fully not developed in her brain. Thinks, oh my God, I can make 5 figures a month. I have 20, 30K on Instagram. I can make 5 figures a month. I don't have to go to college. I don't have to be in loan for years. I don't have to go find an actual job. I can post bikini.
Of us should be promoting or saying, hey, you're freshly 18, you should hop on this. And there are women that do that and try to sign women up just to get a referral from them. And I can definitely agree that that's wrong.
There's a referral program through it?
My name's Victoria Sinis. I'm 26 years old and I'm born and raised in Melbourne, Australia. And I guess my story is a little bit up until very recently. I worked for one of the biggest OnlyFans agencies in the country where I would sell and market girls online. Through that experience, I had a wild encounter with Jesus that totally transformed my life. 5 days later, I walked away from everything. Less than a year later, I was on the other side of the world talking about this. And now I spend my days educating people in the reality of OnlyFans agency, the inner workings of one, and talk to people about how, yeah, Jesus changed my life in 5 days. So that's a bit about me.
Victoria, on the spot, on the money, very concise. I know if I did the introduction, we would still be doing it for the next 2 minutes. So first of all, welcome to the Better Than Peter podcast. Actually, when we were looking at potential guests, so this is how we came across your profile, was there's far too many creators, as you would imagine, on OnlyFans, but and then there is a little bit of content of ex-creators who've kind of said that, okay, I don't, that was my life and I've given it up, or some of the ex-creators who've talked about it not being so glamorous, but I didn't encounter anybody who worked for an agency and went into as much detail. So it's almost like for me and my audience, this is a behind the scenes of what an OnlyFans agency represents and is about in that world, which seems very glamorous. So thank you for making time. And yeah, you've been doing a lot of speaking recently.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me. I always appreciate it and love doing this stuff. Yes, definitely. I have been going around here, there, and everywhere, chatting about all of this.
Okay. Well, so let's dive a little bit back to probably when in one of your interviews you said that you were quite a rebellious teenager, quite somebody who liked partying, tried cocaine when you were 14, and you were drinking far too early, getting into clubs. So fair to say you were a real party girl when you were growing up in your teens?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're 100% correct. I was introduced by a family member actually to cocaine when I was 14 years old.
And so was it like a lifestyle where you got hooked onto it, or you just tried it and that was about it?
I think the peculiar thing that is quite unique to Australia and specifically Melbourne is our party culture. So I don't know, growing up, I guess, like I went to like a semi-private Catholic school. It's not like I was at a public school and I was kind of like this wild child in a sense. So, because it's so normal in our culture to be drinking. It's just a normal part of what you do. Drugs are such a normal part of our culture. And so, yes, even though I was exposed at quite a young age to drugs, to alcohol, to smoking, as you kind of grow up, you're 16, 17, 18, majority of your friends have fake IDs, majority of your friends have been drinking for years and years, and drugs are just a very organic part of the experience, to be honest with you. So as much as it might seem like, oh my gosh, maybe she was super out of control, super wild, I still went to school every single day. It's not like I was, wagging and doing all these things. It's just a normal, I feel, Australian teenager experience. That drugs and alcohol just totally coincide with it, especially in Melbourne.
And in your instance, you were still going to school. You were pretty ambitious and you still were career focused while partying. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people have this interpretation that if you are addicted to substances in any capacity, that it looks like homelessness on the street. It looks like those type of junkies. But that's actually not true. The amount of people that I even personally used to know that in, I guess, for lack of a better word, the upper echelon that are high functioning addicts is massive. It's more common to probably be addicted to drugs and alcohol the more successful you are, than the other way. And again, it's just a part of, I guess, the lifestyle. Like even at the agency when I was working there, the drinking, the drugs, going out, staying up for a couple days, it's all just a part of it. And it's not seen as this weird thing or necessarily seen as a negative. If anything, it's what people associate with the fast life, the elite life. And yeah, just growing up, it was just, it wasn't seen as something weird. You were more weird if you didn't do drugs or if you didn't drink.
Talk me through a little bit then once you finished your education and seems like you had a bit of an entrepreneurial streak. You wanted to get into startups, into marketing. How did you know that early on, or you just grew into it?
No, so when I finished year 12, I went straight into university and I actually studied anthropology and sustainability and development. And I wanted to work, my dream was to work for the like United Nations and develop health policies. So, in third world countries, they have like the NETS program to be able to offset malaria and stuff like that. I was just really fascinated in all of those type of things. And I'm really a person that loves to just solve problems. I just have that type of brain. So for me, health problems are just a bigger scale problem to try and solve. So I love that stuff. I got into the gym when I was really young. So even though you have the duality of the drinking, the drugs, and the smoking, I've been in the gym since I was 16 and I've never stopped. So I was always interested in that element as well, as weird as that sounds. So yeah, I decided to go to university, and the normal age that you graduate high school is 18. But I was a year younger, so I was actually 17. And I was going to university every single day on public transport. And it was like a 2 hour round trip there and back. So it just got too much. So I literally lasted like a semester and then I dropped out. And that's when I got into the world of business. I got into the world of sales. I got into the world of marketing. I had so many different jobs, but I loved sales. I loved, again, the how do you match and mirror someone? How do you connect with someone? How do you solve someone's problem? And basically all of the psychology behind that. So that's kind of where the love of getting into business, sales, and marketing really took off. Yeah.
Makes sense. And before the interview, I commented about your high energy, and sales is a lot about energy and matching the person, and then obviously the terminology, and the better the salesperson that you are, the commonality is you need to love sales. And from what and now it makes sense that you are a person who got into sales and you had a love for sales. How did that transition to getting good in social marketing or digital marketing? Did you take some courses or did you learn as you went along?
So no, for me, I actually have a love for psychology. So in 2020, I had decided to go back to studying, and I really wanted to become a psychologist, but I wanted specifically to get into research. So my new dream was to actually get my PhD, and I wanted to get into alternative medicines and really understanding the comparison between traditional medicine and alt med. And so from that is where I just, and I say this to everyone, curiosity, I think, is one of the most powerful things that we can have. And I don't think that it's something we should ever lose. Be curious about everything. Google everything. Try to understand everything. And I just have that brain where I just want to understand things. And so psychology was such an organic fit for that. So through kind of doing my psychology degree, really getting into alternative medicine, really wanting to understand the deep dive of why do things happen the way they are. One of my really one of my best friends actually had started up a business. So I was able to help her in her hospitality business. This was a different one. And honestly, through that was where I saw the creativity part of my marketing passion, I guess, come alive. I'd always been in sales and I guess this person to person type of thing, and I really loved that. And I never saw my brain as a creative brain. But then when I got more into hospitality and I was able to kind of more contribute to how do we promote the business, how do we get people to feel like they're a part of a community but for a cafe. Like that's a really interesting kind of framework that you have to build. So that's when I guess this brain of curiosity and psychology and marketing kind of all just amalgamated together. And then it was just a process from there of continuing to be involved in different businesses, different startups, and different conversations with people. I feel like I was seeking like-minded people and I found them. And so even my conversations were around these type of things. And that's how it's just kind of grown into a real organic love.
Sure. So, want to hear a little bit. I mean, I've seen it, I've watched it, but for our audience, how did you get into OnlyFans, the agency? I know it was from your friend, and but just a brief 1.5 minute on, how did you get into? From your side, it was getting into a startup agency, but obviously, it's not your normal, typical run-of-the-mill agency.
Yeah. So again, I guess because that's the world I was in, friends that are starting up businesses, entrepreneurial things. I'd gone to Europe in August of 2022. When I'd come back, a close personal friend in my life had said that they had decided to start up an OnlyFans agency. And the reason they started up an OnlyFans agency was because someone in their life was already quite a well-known OnlyFans star. Um, already had an influence on social media and they were complaining about their agency. So my friend was like, well, with my educational background, the fact that we already have people that are in the industry, and then let's bring Vic in because she actually has business startup and marketing expertise. We could build a really strong business here and build a really, successful agency.
Okay. And how would you define OnlyFans when you were about to join? For you, was it, I'm guessing you must be aware what OnlyFans was before getting in.
Well, this is why I'm so passionate about speaking out against this. I feel, especially for my generation, I'm 26. It's been this weird thing that has just been interjected into our culture. Everyone has heard of OnlyFans, but they don't really know when it happened, how it happened, or why it happened. So we always hear whispers of that girl does OnlyFans and all these things. And it was the same for me, but I didn't actually understand what OnlyFans was. I just knew that it was there. I hear whispers that I think you can just sell your feet on there. I don't know, but all I know is that some people were really poor, now they're really rich, therefore this must be a good thing. So I actually lacked quite a lot of education or understanding around what OnlyFans is. And as I've continued along in this journey, I am now understanding that a lot of people are very similar. They don't actually understand what it is. So no, I had no real full grasp of the gravity of what something like OnlyFans is when I accepted the job.
So when did the naivety kind of go away? Was it day one? Was it day five? Because obviously once you got into it, you would have seen the content. There's no way around it. And
Yeah.
then you would have quickly realized this is a lot more than just selling feet pics, right? Like did it hit you then that this is kind of like not exactly content creation?
No, so what had happened is I actually didn't see the back end of the agency for a little while. There's about three different elements to an OnlyFans agency. So the first one is account management, so running the OnlyFans accounts on behalf of the girls. Then there's where I came in, which is marketing. So again, if you look at this from a business perspective, you need to make girls as viral as possible so then you can pull in subscribers, well, you can pull in customers to become subscribers. So my main focus was social media. And then the third element is recruitment. But so that meant I had no association really with what was happening on OnlyFans. I was just in charge of social media. So the only type of content that I was seeing was Instagram content. So bikini photos, lingerie photos. It wasn't until we actually changed the structure of the business that's when I have become an account manager instead of just doing marketing. And that's when I started to see all the content. And then that's when I was like, oh, wow, like this is actually porn. This isn't just content creation, what we're doing here.
Okay. Well, thanks. I want to get a little bit into it because I think you divided it into three parts. One was
Mm.
the management, and then the marketing, and then the recruitment. So, what exactly is the management aspect of it?
Yeah, so when you manage an OnlyFans account, I like to put it like this. So the biggest allure of OnlyFans is the fact that you think that you're having a one-on-one conversation with this girl.
Mm.
Traditional pornography online is you kind of just jump on and you watch random videos, where with OnlyFans, you think that you're talking to the girl. Therefore, you have a relationship with her in some capacity. So, if just say I have an account and I've got 5,000 subscribers that think they have a one-on-one relationship with me, I can no longer facilitate talking to all those people 7 days a week, 24/7. So I have to offset that work. So that's where an agency comes in. So a OnlyFans agency account management will then basically take over the account. They do a full audit of the account. They look through everything that's on there and they'll create a brief of the girl. And the brief is basically as much as they can represent the girl, and then they give that brief to something called a chatter. And so a chatter is actually someone traditionally from a third world country. Ours were from the Philippines. And they're given this brief of the girl, and they have to sit there on their OnlyFans account and basically pretend to be them to make as much sales as possible. So that's kind of aspect number one, which is account management.
So just to make it even simpler, if somebody subscribes to it and they're thinking that they're talking to a girl, they could very well be talking to a 40, they could very well be chatting to a 40-year-old man in Manila, thinking that it's the model. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And the person who is the chatter is essentially, it's I'm assuming in a call center or work from home who's representing the girl based on the brief that you'd given them. So they would know what to say, probably keep them on and get them to purchase more.
Yep, yep. And so us as account managers would have to train them as well in different sales tactics to be able to facilitate that.
Okay. Fine. Sorry, carry on. I just wanted to make sure that I elaborated a little bit, and the word chatter. I mean, it's kind of like outsourcing the work, and this is the tech aspect of it, which is
Mm,
interesting. But obviously, it's the tech aspect of OnlyFans. So okay, so
yeah.
I get that. So you're onboarded the girl. You've created her profile. She's talking to. So the marketing element is the creating of the TikToks, the Reels. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So again, it's just basically how can you make a girl go as viral as possible and then put someone into a funneling system to end them at OnlyFans. So that was my role and responsibility is how do we market girls across all different platforms to be able to draw people in with the end goal of getting them to OnlyFans.
Okay. And the last part was the recruitment part, which you weren't involved in, but exactly what exactly it is, just a little bit on that.
Yeah, so no, I was definitely involved in the recruitment aspect from the perspective of my role was to sit there and you just scour the internet. You look for girls that fit a particular requirement and then you cold message them off the OnlyFans agency account. And you basically are like, hey, like I saw your vibe. I think you're really cute. Have you either considered doing OnlyFans or you
Hmm.
say, have you ever considered representation if they already have an OnlyFans account? And that's kind of how the recruitment process begins. So, and then from there, they'll do a call with someone else and then kind of on from there.
Okay. And normally, I'm assuming it will be between the ages of 18 to 22, 18 to 25, or it depends.
We were looking for girls, so we had like a variety of different ages, but we did, sorry, start to notice that the younger the better.
Hmm.
So we were looking for girls that weren't under the age of 18, but obviously looked as young as possible. And if they weren't fresh 18 or 19, if they were that 21, 22, would they lie and say that they were fresh 18?
Hmm. Okay. And this is where the interesting part is, where you see on the bios of so many of these OnlyFans or OF creators is they list it as content creator,
Mm,
whereas if you have to really break it down, it's sex work. So it's sex work, but disguised or phrased as content creation. It's how would you describe OnlyFans if you had to do it?
absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, to be honest, because I care so much about using the correct terminology. You are not an OnlyFans star. You are a porn star and you are a sex worker and you create porn. You're not an OnlyFans content creator. And I think that it's these fluffy terms that we get confused with, and that's why we don't actually understand the gravity of what something is.
Mhm. The challenge is to that, Victoria, is, and again, so I'm not on either or side. I mean, I view myself as a content creator, to be honest, because I am a podcaster, and a podcaster is that, my job is to interview different guests. The challenge which I see is that there's a lot of mainstream, whether you have athletes, whether you have celebs, whether you have movie stars for that matter, who've joined OnlyFans. And in fact, one of the most famous tennis players on the planet, in fact, Aussie, Nick Kyrgios. So I'm going to even quote Nick. So he says, and Nick is quite popular on OnlyFans. Obviously, he doesn't do nudity, but this was his. So I'm using his quote. Launching an OnlyFans was a no-brainer. They're revolutionizing social media, and I wanted to be a part of that. Athletes can no longer just show up on the court on the field. We have to show up online too. Now, wouldn't you be able to see where the lines get blurred? Because you have a top tennis pro, a person who's idolized by millions, and a little bit of a bad boy, but a very sought after tennis player saying that. So what kind of message would that send? I'm guessing that's where the lines are a bit blurred.
Yes and no. I think that I get that, but he is such a niche anomaly. The statistics show that 98% of the content on OnlyFans is of pornographic nature. So that means Nick actually falls into that small 2% of people that are on the platform that are not actually posting porn. So the vast majority, the overwhelming amount of content that is on OnlyFans is porn. So that's why we can kind of confidently say that this is now a porn website. I don't think anyone associates, as a generalization, OnlyFans with anything other than women who put on provocative photos. So Nick is just such a unique kind of case of someone who's utilizing it in another way. But I also think that he's slightly potentially used the reputation of OnlyFans in a sophisticated way, because people go, Nick Kyrgios started an OnlyFans. Everyone knows the connotation that it has. There would be a lot of people that were curious to then go watch it. And then that's how he's actually able to draw people in for other types of content. So he's still kind of leveraging, I would assume, the reputation that OnlyFans has as a predominant porn site to pique people's curiosity to come to see his content.
Yeah, I don't think he's doing it for the money, but exactly as you said, he has an image, and it's a little bit. I would be surprised if, let's say, Roger Federer were to join OnlyFans.
Yeah.
That would be quite a shock. But yeah, Nick Kyrgios fits in, and as you said, he's playing to the gallery, so to speak, and no pun intended. But yeah, it's so. Thank you again for clarifying that, because there are 2% of the creators who are people who have huge followings from their industry, and for them, they're the ones who make the millions, which I want to get to, because one of the big things which OnlyFans also positions in itself is as a tech company. And OnlyFans recently, there's a very famous poster which says that they distributed $20 billion in the last year to their content creators, and that's such a catchy headline, and they have it against the NBA players, which they have exceeded the payout of the NBA players, which again is not an like for like or an apples to apples, but again, it gives you some context. But as you said, I would argue that out of the 20 billion, 19 point some billion would be to that very niche audience, and then the crumbs would be to the rest.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people do think that you'll jump onto OnlyFans and you'll make a bunch of money, but the average wage of an OnlyFans creator is actually $180 a month. So again, you're not jumping on OnlyFans and you're automatically earning all this money. And then there was another statistic that came out, I think in 2022, there was 2.1 million creators on OnlyFans, and only 300 of those 2.1 million were making more than $1 million a year. So again, you can see that there's such an oversaturation of content on OnlyFans, and the amount of people that are successful from it is a very minute amount. So a lot of people are jumping on thinking they'll make a bunch of money. Realistically, you're maybe going to make $100 a month.
It's mind-boggling that this statistic is kind of not known. Even for me, had I not interviewed you, I'm just thinking, just because of the glamorization of it, I'm thinking that an average person is making five, $10,000 a month easy. And I didn't even realize that there's so much work, there's so much content to be made. $180 a month. You could work at your local gas store or local gas station and make more than that.
Right, it's not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's and the scary part is once it's out there, it's out there. Like you can, if you imagine you're an 18-year-old girl who's just turned 18, you make a bunch of content, you have a change of heart 90 days later.
Mm.
Guess what? Your content is already there.
I think it's great that you mentioned that because actually some recent conversations I've been having is kind of around this, and people are like, well, why is not many people coming out and saying that this is a reality? And I'm like, well, think about it, dive a little deeper. And if you're exactly maybe this 18, 19-year-old girl and you're going, oh, I'm just going to jump onto OnlyFans and make some, quick cash, you're immediately seeing the caliber of content that you actually have to put out there, and then you're not making a lot of money back. So imagine the amount of shame that you have because again, you're attaching your worth to a value of how much money am I making. So you go, okay, therefore I'm less than because I've just jumped on this platform that you're supposed to make a bunch of money on. I've just done all of this porn and I've not made a lot of money from it. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed. I'm going to delete this account because it's not serving me. But then you don't understand the consequence of, wait a minute, this is now on there for forever. So of course you're not going to want anyone to know, because how embarrassing in your mind is it that now you've just gone and done this? And people really don't talk about that as a consequence of why OnlyFans is also such a dangerous platform for us to be idolizing.
Yeah. I want to quickly come back into when you were part of the agency. So how long were you part of the agency and what made you feel that, okay, this is not for me?
Yeah, so it's wild. In an unofficial, again, a startup, so unofficial consultancy role, I guess you could say, about 6 months. But actual paid work, I lasted 5.5 weeks. So as you said before about like, did you see it and then decide that this was like super wrong, basically? And so what had happened for me is I've never watched porn before. Like I've never been a consumer of it. So when, as I said, kind of we changed the structure of the business and I went from doing marketing to seeing the account management stuff, that's when I started to see porn for the first time. And it was really confronting, number one. But then what made it even more weird is the fact that I knew these girls. Like I had started to build relationships with these girls, and then I'm seeing the acts on a computer screen of what they're doing. And it really messed me up, just to be honest. I was struggling every day. I couldn't open up my laptop. I was crying. And but the harder part was that everyone in my world was saying this is normal. So I didn't understand what was going on. I had no language for it because I'm like, everyone's telling me this is normal, but I feel weird. And I just was wrestling because I just didn't know what to do.
Well, so why were you crying when you said you were having a tough time? What exactly were you grappling with? Was it so much in your face, or was it the comments? Was it what the girl had to do? What was it which was more difficult perhaps than what you had anticipated?
I think that it was that. I think on an intrinsic level, we all know that uh, people selling their bodies online in any capacity is wrong. Watching people have sex online is wrong. Like all of this commodification of women, it's wrong. And you can see firsthand the way that it actually destroys people. But yet we're told that this is a positive. We're told that porn is normal and that this is just an organic part of our life. And when you actually see that that's not the reality, I think it does something within you and it splits you because you have this duality of this is what the world says, but this is what I intrinsically know. And so it's this weird wrestle. And so I was going through that and just going, I know that this is wrong. I can't watch this. And so I couldn't watch the content because I'm like, this is just, we shouldn't as humans be consuming this. We shouldn't be watching stuff like this. But again, I had no language around that. All I knew is that I would open up my laptop. I would feel like overwhelmed. I'd feel really sad. And then I just couldn't do my job. But it wasn't until I could put the language around it that it's because intrinsically I knew that this is wrong, this is evil, this is destroying people's lives, and we shouldn't be encouraging this.
Okay. And so you said you lasted 5.5 weeks after you were paid. And then what was the day or when did you finally decide, okay, you're leaving? And then what was the decision like?
Yeah, so what had happened was a critical moment in when I was working at the agency is I'm feeling this way. And one day I'm sitting on my laptop and I'm looking at this girl. And I just had this weird revelation. I was like, I have a little niece, she's 3 years old. And I was like, oh my gosh, when she grows up, she's going to look exactly like this girl. And then I was like, whoa, that's someone's niece. And then I went, wait a minute. If my niece did this, I would be devastated. If my brother's daughter did this, he would be devastated. So why is it okay that someone else's niece and someone else's daughter is doing this? So from that moment, it really made them a human and stopped this commodification of these girls. And that's when I started to ask questions and ask people at the agency, what do you think about what we're doing? And that's when everyone was like, they didn't really see a problem with it. So I was struggling. So I kind of just came up with this genius idea. I was like, and this is so normal. People do this. They go, well, I'm doing something that makes me feel bad. Okay, I need to go do something good, and that's going to offset all the bad that I'm doing. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go volunteer. I'm going to go help a bunch of refugees. It's going to make me feel so much better about myself.
Sorry, did you quit at this time or were you still
No,
having the
no.
job?
Yep, still working the job.
Okay.
So I was like, if I go volunteer and help refugees, I was building a medicinal cannabis company at the time with one of the owners of the agency. And so I was like, I'll go away. I'll help all these refugees. By the time I come back, our cannabis company will be up and running. And then I don't actually have to work at the OnlyFans agency anymore.
Okay.
That was my train of thought.
I was just going to say I mean, then again, you're 23-year-old, 24-year-old. I can see there's a few gaps in there, but yeah, I can see that you still want to work in tech, you still want to, but I think you're done with OnlyFans. I can see that part of it. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what had happened was I had this really random memory. So as we can tell, my life didn't reflect faith in any capacity. But I was like, oh, there was a church that I went to as a kid and they had like a refugee program. Sick. I'll sign up for that and then my plan will be executed. So I Googled the church. I signed up to like help refugees. And then I get a call one day from this girl, and she's like, hi, I heard you wanted to reach out to the church. Do you want to come down and have a chat? And in my mind, I thought we are going to talk about refugees, and I kind of alluded to what was going on, but I didn't really talk about it. So on a Thursday, I remember I rocked up to church and I ended up just word vomiting to this girl just everything that was going on. And she just goes, I really think that you should come to church this Sunday. I think you'll really resonate with the speaker. So I was like, all right. So the Sunday came around and I went to church, and this lady in church is talking about this over-sexualized culture that we live in and the
Mm.
dangers of things like OnlyFans and pornography and how it's destroying the next generation. And the biggest thing she said that day that really hit me, and I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do, is she goes, Christians are supposed to be the salt and the light of this earth, and they have failed, and we are destroying the next generation. And it just impacted me. And so when she finished speaking, I was in the balcony at the back. I ran down to her and I just went up to her and I said, hi, my name's Victoria. I work for an OnlyFans agency and I hate myself. And she didn't condemn me. She didn't do the thing that people think Christians will do. She literally just goes, let's have lunch. And so we had lunch together. She answered all my questions. And yeah, that was on a Sunday. And by the Friday, I quit the OnlyFans agency.
What do you hope now, Victoria? So again, we're having this conversation. The episode is out there now. Um, the issue is again, OnlyFans is only going to get bigger, right? I don't see OnlyFans. It's getting to a company where even investors would want to get their hand in the pie if they can. Now, would you say that this is more about educating people who are perhaps not as still see it as a very glamorous side of it, and from our end, or your end, what the best you can do is to inform young girls, especially, that listen, this is not your only choice, or perhaps this is not, as you won't become a millionaire in 6 months' time by just laying on a beach and taking some pics.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely that. I think the biggest thing that we can do is educate people, and if people can make a well-informed decision, then I think that they will also be less likely to make poor choices. And that's it. The biggest thing that I have on my heart truly is I'm like, I just want to champion people. People don't understand the capacity that they have. People don't understand how unique they are, that they're actually tailor-made for an extraordinary life. And an extraordinary life isn't a life of selling yourself online. Women have so much more capacity, they have so much more value and worth. And also men. Men are not made to sit there and just watch people have sex online, and that destroys men. So in my heart, I just want to champion people. I want to educate them. I want to equip them. And just let them know that there are other paths out there, there are other alternatives, and that you can be better and do better and live a life of your dreams, which doesn't involve selling yourself.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I just feel, and this is probably a topic for another guest at some stage, but and I've come across this, that there are more lonely people in the planet today than ever before, and I think that's another reason. There's no coincidence why you have such an increase in the numbers, just because people are at home more, and unfortunately because of social media, there's a lot of consumption, but not on the right side of things, but more on, and it's contributed to loneliness. More men are now not dating. It's relationships are suffering. That's again, as I said, that's the topic in itself. But I think education is super important at this stage.
Yeah, yeah. I totally couldn't agree with you more. I think you said it perfectly.
And I was segueing towards creating gems. So what exactly is creating gems?
Yeah, well, by the time this comes out, which is so exciting, it will actually totally be relaunched.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so originally Creating Gems was me going into schools and talking to young girls about this experience with OnlyFans and my journey. But I have now partnered with a non-for-profit and I'll be going into schools with them. And Creating Gems has taken a total pivot. So a very quick backstory is, as I've continued on this journey, I'm meeting wild people with these crazy stories. But a lot of people have really beautiful hearts, but they just don't have the capacity to be able to execute online, how to show up and how to share their stories, how to promote, the beautiful work that they're doing in changing people's lives through the hardship that they've had. So I've really felt this tug to really kind of change gems from me going into schools to now actually using all of the expertise that I've had in all my years in business and startups and marketing to be able to put high level strategies in place for these people so they can actually bring their countercultural stories to social media. So now Creating Gems has totally changed from me going into schools to actually being a social media consultancy business, specifically for people that are out there doing this wild work and have these wonderful stories. And I want to be able to bring them to social media so people can come on social media and be inspired and, hear these wild stories and want to be like that and not want to just jump on social media and see a bunch of OnlyFans girls and think that that's what they have to do. So that's what Gems is now.
Do you have the website for the new relaunch, or not yet?
Literally by the time I'm launching this tomorrow. So
Okay.
by
So
the time it
what's
comes
the
out,
website going to be?
so it'll still be creatinggems.com. You'll still be able to get it through my Instagram, and all of that. It just won't be me going into schools on my own anymore. I have a non-for-profit that I've partnered with now. And so yeah, all of that will be able to still be found on my social media page.
Well, congratulations. We will definitely link up your social media as well, and we'll put up the website. For the people who are listening, perhaps, what is your social media Instagram?
Yeah, so my Instagram is victoria.sinis, Sinis. That's the best place to find me. My email's there. And then my TikTok is just vic.sinis. And yeah, they're the two platforms that I have.
Yeah, Victoria, you're doing. I'm not surprised in this pivot at all. It's with this background of yours, I just felt that there was a technology play at some stage, and obviously now with your appearances on these channels, you're getting the word out. And what you are doing is you actually have an insider seat to a world which not many of us are aware of. And from that, you're able to, I feel, resonate much more with somebody who's, let's say, a 16 or a 17-year-old who will turn 18 in a couple months' time. Now, listen, I think that's probably the single biggest takeaway for me. Listen, you want to do whatever you want to do. That's on you. But this is the reality behind that world. And I think when you have a story to share, it'll just have much more weight.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you for being on the podcast, Victoria.